Welcome back, everybody, to the 15th episode of the podcast. We've got a lot of stuff to cover with the NFL season starting in just a little bit over a week. We're going to be wrapping up our predictions, and we're going to be giving our full predictions, playoffs, awards, all that, along with other stuff. It should be a pretty fun episode, and as always, I am joined by Nick and Ader, if you want to greet the people.
I'm back again. Been a while, but finally moved into a new dorm and go Monarchs.
Go Monarchs, he says. So let's not waste any time because we've got a lot of stuff to go over, and we will start with our NFL predictions. We still have two more divisions to cover for our NFL predictions this year, and obviously we're going to do a more broad version in just a little bit. But since this will probably be the last episode before the season starts, we're going to do the NFC West and the NFC South together. We're going to start with the NFC West, and we're going to start with the San Francisco 49ers, who in my opinion are one of the most fascinating teams in the league because of the quarterback position. The rest of their roster, minus quarterback, might be the best in the league. They've got a phenomenal group of skill position players. Their offensive line has some young players with upside, and they've got Trent Williams, who's the best offensive lineman maybe in the league. And then defensively, this was the best unit in football a year ago with the Defensive Player of the Year, Nick Bosa. Fred Warner's the best off-ball linebacker in the league. Talanoa Hufanga, I believe, was a second-team All-Pro. Dre Greenlaw's very good. Javon Hargrave's very good. Charvarius Ward is super underrated. This is a loaded roster, but the one question here is the quarterback position, and we got some answers as Trey Lance has been traded away. It's Brock Purdy's team for the time being, and the question is, will he be able to handle it? I think yes and no. I don't think last year with him was super fluky. I think he can continue to be a serviceable starting quarterback in the NFL, but the question with him is his ceiling. If you look at all these other contenders, they have quarterbacks with higher ceilings. Hurts, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, etc. Those guys have the ability to be top 5 quarterbacks in the league, and I just don't see that with Brock Purdy. So that's kind of the concern I have with this team. Can Brock Purdy elevate these guys in January, in big games, to be a Super Bowl contender? And I cannot confidently say yes.
This is a team that everyone's going to be going into and thinking they're going to be winning the division. They're going to be contending for that Super Bowl. And for the past, in the entire Kyle Shanahan era, we've seen a fantastic defense from this unit. And after adding one of the best defensive tackles in Javon Hargrave, this defense is only going to get better. They lose one corner, Emmanuel Mosley, but their corner unit, their DB unit, their safeties, their linebackers, the front seven, the D-line, everything is fantastic. Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave is the best DT duo. Drake Jackson's looking to break out. Nick Bosa just won DPOY. Fred Warner is the best linebacker in the league. Drake Greenlaw is one of the best young linebackers. The defense, no one is going to be worried about. And with the offense, the O-line is solid enough, but you have Trent Williams, so you should be fine. And the weapons, we all know, is fantastic. CMC is the top 3 running back. Deebo Samuel is one of the best all-around weapons. Brandon Ayuk is my guy. He's going to be great. George Kittle, one of the best talented tight ends in the league. And you have Kyle Juszczyk, the best fullback, but it's fullback. The question just goes to what is going to happen at quarterback. And we saw last year, Brock Purdy did what he needed to do, and he played pretty damn well to be able to take his team to the NFC Championship. But it was in a very limited sample size. And the question is, can he continue that for a full season after coming off this big injury? This injury that he's coming off of is an injury that takes baseball players months to come back from, a lot longer than what he's done. He came back a lot sooner than at least what I thought. I thought he wouldn't come back till the middle of the season. But it depends on what can his arm do and how far can he go with this. Because, like you said, his upside is not all there. He seems like a guy who could be like a Jimmy G type of guy, a solid guy who can kind of get the job done. But can he elevate and take you the next step that you need to get over the hump?
One of the biggest surprises in the NFL last year was the Seattle Seahawks. Pretty much everybody, myself included, thought this team would be at the bottom of the standings in the race for guys like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And the beauty of the NFL is that it's so unpredictable. Things change in this league very quickly. And that is the case with the Seattle Seahawks, who won 9 games. They made the playoffs, and I think they potentially have the ability to get back there. Geno Smith at quarterback, the question with him is he a one-year wonder? And I think that he will continue to play at a pretty good level. I think some people have kind of overrated him a little bit. I think he's kind of creeping into people's top 10s. I'm not ready to go there yet, but he was quite good last year, and I think it is sustainable. They've got a really good group of offensive skill position players, one of the best in the entire NFL because it's so balanced and deep. Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet are going to complement each other very well. They have, at minimum, a top 2 receiving trio in the league with DK and Lockett as your main guys, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba in the slot. He is not healthy at the moment, but he should be healthy early in the year. The offensive line is young and improving, and overall, this offense, again, should be one of the better units in the league. The question with this team is the defense. It was not great last year, and I do think there is a lot of room for improvement. Bobby Wagner is back. He was PFF's number 1 graded linebacker last year. Is he the best off-ball linebacker in the league? No. I think that grade is a little generous, but Bobby Wagner is still a good player. Jamal Adams is back healthy. Devin Witherspoon is going to make an immediate impact, and I think we could see some younger players like Boye Mafe take a step up. Tariq Woolen obviously had a very solid year last year. I'm not totally sold on this Seattle team. I think they could fall back down to earth a little bit as they did towards the second half of the year last year, but I also see a world where this team wins 11 or 12 games and surprises people, maybe even steals the division. If anybody other than San Francisco were to win the West, it's going to be Seattle.
Again, like the Niners, this is the team that people are just kind of expecting to win this division, and as we'll get into it, the other 2 teams in this division are not very good. But it all comes down to Geno Smith and this offense. This offense looks on paper really good. Geno Smith, like you said, we got to see if he can continue the success he had last year. Pete Carroll, one of the best head coaches, one of the best offensive minds in football. And will he be able to continue with Geno Smith after losing, I believe it was either their OC or their QB coach, to the Buccaneers? Then we'll see if he can continue his success into this second year with the Seattle Seahawks. Like you said, the receiving core, the running backs, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, DK, Lockett, JSN, they're all phenomenal. The O-line has been probably the best we've seen since the beginning of the Russell Wilson era. And that's saying a lot because that last few years with Russ, this O-line was awful. But Charles Cross, Abraham Lucas, some of the best young tackle duos last year. But it's going to come down to that defense. Can these young guys step up? This front 7 does not look very good. Looking at their D-line specifically, you don't want that if you're trying to go win a Super Bowl. But they run a 3-4 for a reason. They have more linebackers. Bobby Wagner, Jordan Brooks kind of broke out a little bit. They got Devin Bush in free agency. We'll see if he can do anything, maybe. Boye Mafe is an edge rusher, opposite side of Uchenna Nwosu. I like both of those guys, but we'll see if they can take a next step forward into being a good elite edge rusher. And that secondary is the strong suit of this defense. You drafted Devin Witherspoon 5th overall. Tariq Woolen had an extremely good rookie season. Quandre Diggs is one of the better safeties. And now you're getting Jamal Adams back, which people are forgetting. Jamal Adams is a very good football player. He gives this defense pass rush, which they need desperately, and he's still a good safety. He missed all last year because of injury, and I think people forgot he was even on this team. I forgot he was here for a bit. Now that he's going to come back, that just gives another boost to this defense that I think this team needed. I don't know if they're going to be able to have enough to go the full distance, but I think they have enough to continue the success that they had last year.
Just as we talked about with the Seattle Seahawks, the NFL has some weird storylines and things that we don't necessarily expect. And that was also the case with the LA Rams last year. They had just won the Super Bowl and everything fell apart. And I fear for the Rams, things could get worse because this roster, head to toe, might be the worst in the NFL. Aaron Donald is still very good. Cooper Kupp is still very good. And that's about all they have going for them. Matthew Stafford is older. He has been injury prone in the past. That appears to be an issue again. The rest of their skill position players outside of Cooper Kupp are not good. Their offensive line is not good. And if not for Aaron Donald, they would have maybe the worst defense on paper I have ever seen, probably. The only saving graces of this team are the star level players they have and the fact that Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the NFL. But this team is flat out awful. I would be very surprised if they are any good this year unless Matthew Stafford turns back the clock and Sean McVay continues to be a wizard and somehow fixes what is a major mess that the Rams have.
Yeah, when you look at this roster, this is not what you want to see when you won a Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. This roster, from head to toe, is just kind of atrocious. And you don't really use this to look at rosters, but if you go on Madden, you have Cooper Kupp and you have Aaron Donald. And I could not name you who the third highest rated player on this team is because everybody else is either not good, a rookie, or Matthew Stafford. And, like, this roster is just really bad. Like, there's some guys that I like. Like, I like Van Jefferson, but Van Jefferson is not going to make or break your season. You already have Cooper Kupp. K-Maker's not a good running back. Tutu Atwell is what people who hated Devontae Smith coming out of college thought Devontae Smith was going to be. The O-line is one of the worst in the league. That's why they were so bad last year. And the defense is just atrocious aside from Aaron Donald. You get rid of Jalen Ramsey. Your corner one is Robert Rochelle and Kobe Durant. This is not what you want to see. This is not the good Kobe. This is a cornerback named Kobe. This is not what you want to see. The linebacker unit, I don't know who these players are. I know who Ernest Jones is. You do not want Ernest Jones to be a starting linebacker. Your number one linebacker, even. You do not want that. The D-line, besides Aaron Donald, I know who they are. Again, they're either a rookie or a player you don't want to be a starter. This roster has just been dismantled. And when you saw the rumors with AD wanted to retire, with Sean McVay maybe wanted to retire, maybe they should have, because what's the point of playing when this team is just atrocious?
As bad as the Rams are, it could be worse. You could be the Arizona Cardinals. This roster might be even worse. I think the Rams roster and the Cardinals roster are by far the two worst in the NFL. I don't think anybody compares to these teams. Now, things are different when Kyler Murray is healthy, and obviously, for those who are unaware, the two of us do not agree on Kyler Murray. I believe that he can be a high-level franchise quarterback, and Nick Nader thinks otherwise. What I do agree with the consensus about is that this team has a very good shot at getting the number one pick, and if they do, Caleb Williams, you are an Arizona Cardinal. I think there's a good shot we don't see Kyler Murray at all this year, especially if they are as bad as advertised. I think Josh Dobbs probably will be the starting quarterback. I think he's unironically not awful. I'm not surprised they made that move because at least they're going to look a little bit more competent. The skill positions aren't terrible. I think Marquise Brown has honestly become underrated at this point. When Kyler Murray was healthy last year, Hollywood was legitimately pretty good. Rondale Moore is solid. Michael Wilson, I think, is going to be a good pro. Greg Dortch is kind of underrated. And I do think that the Cardinals are coming off a really good draft. Paris Johnson, B.J. Ojulari, Garrett Williams, as we mentioned, Michael Wilson, adding the Texans' first-round pick. I think the Cardinals have a better future than people realize. But for 2023, this team is going to be an utter disaster.
As you mentioned, I am an avid, we'll say, not enjoyer of the quarterback that is Kyler Murray. But I don't think he's going to play. I think even if he gets healthy, there was plenty of rumors that said he will not play. Because why play when your team is probably going to win 2 or 3 games? What would be the point? Maybe playing like 1 or 2 to show, hey, I'm back, I can actually play, and then get a little bit of better trade value. But I don't think he really cares about the Cardinals. I think he's going to want to get out of there. I think he's going to be maybe a Patriot, maybe a Raider, because Mark Davis wants money. But who knows? I just don't think he's going to be a Cardinal. I think they're going to get the number 1 pick. They're going to take Caleb Williams, and they're going to trade Kyler, get some sort of assets, and he can go be a bad quarterback elsewhere. But besides Kyler Murray, your starter right now is Joshua Dobbs, who has been with the team for a solid 2-3 days so far. So he doesn't know the playbook. And your backup right now is rookie Clayton Tune, which is not what you want to hear. James Conner is the running back. He's not really that good anymore, but he can be a goal line guy. You did mention Marquise Brown, and I think he's actually good. But he, again, got hurt last year. Kyler got hurt last year, so his play just diminished. The O-line is really bad. Paris Johnson is a good pick. DJ Humphries is actually a solid left tackle. But besides the tackles, then they're just not a good roster at all. This defense is kind of atrocious. I'm shocked that Budda Baker actually stayed with the team. I don't know why he didn't want to get out of there, but go for it. Go be your Damian Lillard and stick with it. Zayvon Collins hasn't really shown much. They just traded Isaiah Simmons a few days ago for a 7th-round pick, which is really bad. But you mentioned they have a really good draft, and they did. I mentioned Paris Johnson, B.J. Ojulari, one of my guys. I think he's going to be really good. I think he is kind of like the next Hassan Reddick, and he got drafted by the team that drafted Hassan Reddick. So don't mess up BJ like you messed up Hassan Reddick. They also drafted Ompapa, which is another one of my guys. So I kind of want the Cardinals to be good, but they're really bad. They're going to be worse than the Rams, because at least the Rams have a solid quarterback. I think Stafford is better than Joshua Dobbs, which 5 years ago I would never have that saying out of my mouth, but it happened. But this roster is just really bad. They're not going to do much. They're going to be fighting for the number 1 pick. And maybe if the Texans do as bad as some people think, maybe they'll have 2 picks in the top 3.
So let's now go to the NFC South, which many people believe is the worst division in the league, and I think that's completely fair. I don't think any of these 4 teams are really all that good. But I do think this is a division where anyone can win it. I feel like people are writing off the Bucs entirely. I'm not quite ready to do that yet. As ironic as it is, for those who don't know, I thought Baker Mayfield was a very bad prospect coming out of Oklahoma. I thought he should not have been touched in the top 100 picks. I thought the Browns were stupid for picking him, and in hindsight, I was kind of right. But now I feel like I'm one of the only people who still sees something left in there with Baker Mayfield. 2 years ago, he was the unquestioned franchise quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, and he has not played well since then, largely because of his injury. But I think he's actually not in the worst situation. The Buccaneers have some weapons around him. Rachaad White is poised for a breakout year. They've got Sean Tucker in the backfield, who I think is going to be pretty good for an undrafted rookie. Mike Evans is very good. Chris Godwin is very good. The offensive line, I think, could be better than people think. There are some intriguing young players here. And obviously, you have veterans like Tristan Wirfs. And then defensively, this team's legitimately pretty good. The defensive line across the board is nice, of course, led by Big Vita Vea. They've got a pretty good linebacking duo. Levante David is still very good. Devin White was not good last year, but there's still plenty of talent left with him. The secondary on paper is phenomenal. Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis is a great cornerback duo. Antoine Winfield's a stud. Ryan Neal is super underrated. If this team is kind of like last year's Jaguars, where everybody just assumes they're going to finish poorly, but their division's bad and their roster's not as bad as people think, I could see this Bucs team hypothetically winning the South. I do think they are probably the least likely team to do it, but I see a world where it happens.
This Bucs team, I don't think is going to be very good, but I do see a world where they can be good. They still have a lot of the talent that they had in that Super Bowl team. The main guys that are gone are obviously Tom Brady and Leonard Fournette, and that's more or less the only players that they're really missing from that team. The O-line is fairly good. Ali Marpet might be done for his career with these injuries he's having, but the O-line is still fairly solid. Tristan Wirfs is one of the best tackles in football. The wide receiver unit with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin is really good, and I do like Trey Palmer, see what he can do. Rachaad White, one of the better, maybe, I don't want to say better, that's a little bit of an overstatement, but he's been doing well in camp, and Sean Tucker, if he gets some first-round snaps, we will be #pleased. But like you mentioned, Baker Mayfield is going to be the engine to this team to see what they can do. We all know and can easily tell this is a very weak division. It was a weak division last year. The Bucs won it at 8-9. That's a weak division, and none of these teams got that much better to prove that they could beat an 8-9 record to win the division. If the Bucs win it again at 8-9, I wouldn't be that shocked. I don't think they're going to be able to do too much because of Baker Mayfield, but I do see a world where he picks it up a bit. His OC is the guy that helped Geno Smith become what he was last year. So if he can do that with Baker, they can win 8, maybe even 9 or hell 10 games, get double digits, and maybe win the division again. But the defense is going to be the main unit. The secondary is really good. Antoine Winfield and Devin White, who are really good picks. have kind of fallen back down to earth, but I think at least Winfield is still good. Devin White, jury's still out on him. The edge rushing unit, it's a little questionable. Joe Shoyinka, Logan Hall, first-round pick Elijah Cansey, I actually do really like. I think the pass ride side of him, along with the nose tackle of Vita Vea, is just a really great duo. And they're going to be getting Shaquille Barrett back. He was phenomenal for their the Super Bowl run in 2020. Then the following year, he was good. A few years ago, he had almost 20 sacks. I think he is a very good football player. He was hurt a lot last year, and I think going into this year, he's going to be something that they'll need to step up with the leadership to help this team win games if they want to go win a division. But if they don't win a division, win like 5 games, Kyle Trask gets a couple starts, I wouldn't be shocked.
The New Orleans Saints seem to be the favorite in the NFC South. And on one hand, I get it, but on the other hand, I disagree. I think this team has become one of the more overrated teams in the league. Derek Carr was not good last year. I get he was in a pretty bad situation with the Las Vegas Raiders, but Derek Carr has never been the same player since his 2016 MVP-esque season. He's been a very average quarterback since then, and I think the rest of this team is, well, very average. They have talent in the backfield. Alvin Kamara is only going to miss 3 games. Jamal Williams is a good short yardage guy. Keandre Miller is an intriguing young player. I think the pass catchers here are one of the bigger strengths. Chris Olave, I genuinely believe, will show that he is a legit number 1 receiver in this league, and I think he'll enter those fringe top 10 to 15 conversations by the end of the year. Rashid Shaheed is a dog. Michael Thomas is good when he's on the field, which is like never. The offensive line is fine. They're certainly hoping for a good season out of Trevor Penning, who did not play last year. And then defensively, it's fine. I think the front 7 is pretty weak. I do kind of like the secondary, though. I think Paulson Adebo and Alontae Taylor in the secondary are going to take a leap up. But I think the rest of this defense is fairly overrated. Marshall Lattimore I don't think is as good as people make him out to be. Demario Davis is a cool player, but he's getting older. Cameron Jordan's a good player. He's getting older. Honey Badger, he's getting older. Marcus May, he's on the wrong side of 30 as well. All of these very solid players on the Saints defense are probably going to regress. And I just feel like a lot needs to go right for this team to be as good as people think they're going to be. They do have an easy schedule, though, which does go to their benefit.
Just like we mentioned with the Cardinals, they have Kyler Murray. I do not like Kyler Murray. I also do not like Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is kind of playing not very good. I get it. Josh McDaniels is not a good coach. He is not a good play caller. I understand that. I hate Josh McDaniels more than I hate Kyler Murray. That's saying something. But my thing with Derek Carr, how do you get the best wide receiver in football, 1A, 1B with Jefferson, with Devontae Adams, and you have Josh Jacobs, who breaks out, has probably the best running back season last year, and you do worse than the year before? I don't understand that. I get it. Josh McDaniels sucks. Those injuries to Darren Waller, sure. Hunter Renfrow, sure. But still, you play abysmal. Derek Carr got benched for, Aiden McConnell? I don't even know if that's the right name. I don't remember who even got benched for, because they're probably a third stringer right now.
I think it was Jarrett Stidham.
Really bad for Derek Carr. Jarrett Stidham, that's it. It was someone from the Patriots, and it was Stidham, I remember now. But that's not good. Jarrett Stidham is not a good quarterback. Neither is Derek Carr, but at least he's better than Stidham. Alvin Kamara is suspended for a couple games. Maybe he'll be good. He took a big step back last year, but who knows? Jamal Williams, I like, but he's kind of on the goal line. Just go get a touchdown merchant. But we'll see what he can do in the first couple of games, being the main back while Kamara's gone. Chris Olave, I really like. I wish he had a better quarterback with him to take that next step up. I think he could do what people think Garrett Wilson's going to do, but I think with Derek Carr throwing the ball, it is not going to happen. Michael Thomas is back, but maybe he won't be for long. We'll see if he gets hurt again. Juwan Johnson is a really young tight end that I like. I think a lot of people think he's going to be able to break out, but we'll see what that happens. Again, you have Derek Carr throwing the ball. I do not think Derek Carr is good at throwing the ball anymore. And you went from Josh McDaniels to Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen is not very good at offense. He's good at defense. I'll give him that. But he's not very good at offense. I don't think he's the play caller. And if I don't know who the offensive coordinator is for your team, they're probably not very good. And then the defense, like you mentioned, is not very good as well. Cam Jordan is kind of washed up at this point. He was really good when he was in his prime. He's not in his prime anymore. He's done. If he gets traded to the Broncos to go rejoin Sean Payton, I wouldn't be surprised. They drafted Brian Brzee in the first round. He's not even going to be starting. Pete Werner is one of the younger guys that I think is actually fairly solid for this defense. But looking at every other starter, Demario Davis is like 35 at this point. Tyrann Mathieu, who played pretty well last year, is also like 34, 35. Marcus May, even though he has only played like 6 years, he's already like 31. Lattimore, I do still like Lattimore. I think he's probably a top 20, maybe, cornerback. But again, he's getting older. He didn't play as well last year. He's probably going to take another step back this year. We'll see. But a lot of these players on this defense are just old and not going to be playing as better as they did last year. And when you didn't win games last year, sure, you didn't have a good quarterback. You're not going to be winning games this year when Derek Carr still isn't all that good. If you want to make the issue that he had Josh McDaniels, he wasn't playing good. He wasn't playing all that well before Josh McDaniels. He played decent enough to help them when, whatever the special team coordinator for the Packers is, I forget his name. But when he stepped in, he was coaching that helped Derek Carr and helped get there. Josh McDaniels comes in, Derek Carr, abysmal. Whatever the coach is, sometimes it's an excuse. Sometimes you have to just accept that the player just is not good. And I do not think that Derek Carr is a good quarterback anymore. I don't think the Saints are going to win games.
The Carolina Panthers, to me, are a very fascinating team because I think this squad has the ability to be quite solid. I think it obviously largely rolls on the shoulders of Bryce Young, who I think is the best of the rookie quarterbacks. He had his ups and downs in the preseason, and I think he's going to have a very strong rookie year. I think he's ready. I think he's polished, and I think he's in a pretty good situation in a Frank Reich offense. I think he's got a pretty solid group around him. Miles Sanders, I think, is going to have a big year. He was really solid last year. I think he's going to be good again. The Panthers did a great job of revamping the receiving core with Jonathan Mingo, DJ Chark, Adam Thielen. I still think there's some upside with Terrace Marshall. They added Hayden Hurst. And I think their offensive line should be better, especially with a potential breakout season from Ike Ekwonu. I think this offense could be really good. The defense, I think there's a lot of talent, but I also think things need to come together, and I'm not so sure that's going to happen. Their defensive line is pretty solid. Brian Burns is a good pass rusher. Derek Brown's coming off a very strong season last year. The linebacking core is pretty good too. Frankie Luvu is one of the more underrated players in the league. Shaq Thompson is still productive. And then the secondary, I think, has talent as well, but we need to see more consistency out of these guys. J.C. Horn was healthy last year. He was really impressive. But we need more consistency from the other guys like Dante Jackson and Jeremy Chin, who graded out very lowly last year according to PFF, although we know those guys have more talent than that. I think the ceiling with the Panthers is really high, and I think this team has a good shot to be a lot better than everybody is making them out to be. I think they're projected to finish third in the division. I'm never seeing them picked to win it, and I think there's a good shot they do.
Looking at the entire division as a whole, any team can win it, and that includes the Carolina Panthers. And it's, again, like almost every team, I think, it's going to revolve around the quarterback in Bryce Young here. Can he play well as a rookie and help these Panthers win some damn games? Miles Sanders, go Birds, really like him as a running back. He doesn't really have good hands, though. So getting Chuba Hubbard coming out of the backfield, catching some passes from Bryce Young, help him out with the short game. Sometimes you need to simplify the offense for your rookie quarterback, and I think Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders as a tandem are really going to help him out there. But I do think after trading DJ Moore, their receiving core was awful. But I think the Panthers did enough, or at least what they could have done, to help Bryce Young do what he needs to do to help them win games. Adam Thielen isn't a number one receiver, but I think he still has some talent. DJ Chark, I think, has some good talent as a deep ball threat. Jonathan Mingo, they drafted. A lot of people like him. I do as well. I think he has a lot of talent. Laviska Shenault could be a guy they can use in the short game to help out Bryce Young. Terrace Marshall, he's going to be their bigger threat in the receiving game. Hayden Hurst is a lot better than Ian Thomas and Tommy Tremble. So that, again, helps Bryce Young simplify the offense, helps him get the ball out quicker, because if the pocket collapses, he's not going to be able to see a damn thing. And the O-line is very big guys, Taylor Morton, Ike Ekwonu, very large men. If that pocket collapses, he's probably going to get stuck. But the O-line is solid enough where I think he's got it. I think the weapons he has are good. The line is good. I think he's got what it takes to be able to win games. Frank Reich is a good play caller. He's a good coach. I think getting a guy like Frank Reich is one of the better decisions they could have done to help out a guy like Bryce Young, to help out that rookie QB. This defense, I do really like. I think 2 seasons ago, they started out like 3-0, 4-0, and they're playing really well. This defense was really good. It's definitely taken a few steps back since then, but I do like all the talent on here. Derek Brown took a big step up last year. He's really good. Brian Burns is one of the better elite edge rushers. I want to see him go in, attack the quarterback, 15 plus sacks. That's what I want to see from Brian Burns, to show me that he is what everyone thinks he is. Shaq Thompson, Frankie Louvu, those are some of the better linebackers that they got. Justin Houston is a more recent signing. And even at like 40 years old, this dude still gets like 10, 11 sacks. He's just like Brandon Graham. This guy is really good. Dante Jackson didn't grade that well, but I think he has a lot of talent. Same with Jeremy Lin. CJ Henderson, he's still in the league. He's here. I think he still has some talent. J.C. Horn, I really like. I'm a big J.C. Horn fan. I think he's got a lot of talent in him as to be a good CB1. And I want to see him take that next step to be that elite corner that I know he can be. And this defense as a whole, like you said, they have a lot of talent on here. They just got to put it together. I don't know if they're going to go out and win 9-10 games, but I think they have a lot of promise. And I think even if they win like 7-8 games, don't get like a top 10 pick or something, I think they'll be fine, because this team just needs to let Bryce Young, the young players on the defense, and Jonathan Mingo, and just let them develop. Let them progress in their talent to grow in what they know, and then just go get Bryce Young, an elite receiver, and just go win football games.
I think the Atlanta Falcons have the highest ceiling of any team in this division, but I also think they have the lowest floor. Desmond Ridder is an interesting case because I'm not all that high on him, but I think he's in a good situation to succeed because he's got legitimate star talent around him. Bijan Robinson is probably the best overall prospect to enter the NFL in the last 5 years. That's how good I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be a top 5 running back pretty much right away for the most part. If not Bijan Robinson over the last 5 years, it might be Kyle Pitts, who's next up on that list. I think Kyle Pitts is going to have the year that everybody knows he can. I think he is one of the most talented players in the league. He just has been held back by the system, and if he can break through the system, he's going to have a big year. Drake London's a superbly talented player. The offensive line is honestly really good. Chris Lindstrom's one of the best guards in the league. Caleb McGarry was good last year. Jake Matthews is very steady. Matthew Bergeron's a pretty good pick. I think if Desmond Ridder is average, this offense could be one of the best in the league. Defensively, I think they made some solid additions. Jesse Bates obviously being the big one. Jeff Okudah is an interesting reclamation project, although he doesn't seem to be all that healthy. AJ Terrell's a super talented player, but I do worry about the front seven. I like the addition of Calais Campbell, but I'm not sure the pass rush is going to be all that consistent. I do worry about the coverage outside of AJ Terrell. I think this defense could be good, but I think a lot needs to go well. I think if Desmond Ridder is a top 16 quarterback, though, this team probably makes the playoffs.
This is a team that, like the Panthers, has a lot of young talent, and I think they have maybe a bit of a higher ceiling than the Panthers do. And like pretty much every team in the NFL is going to come down to this quarterback. Can Desmond Ridder do what a lot of people actually think he can do? A lot of people are going to be high on the Falcons. From what you kind of look at in like the media and the fans, a lot of people, if they don't have the Saints winning the division, they probably have the Falcons winning the division. And maybe it's because Bijan Robinson is very, very good at football. But maybe it's because they think Desmond Ridder is going to be good. I think he could be solid. I don't know if he has that upside to be a top 15 quarterback, but I think if he's probably about a top 20 or so quarterback, this offense is going to be pretty good. mainly because Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier might be the best running back duo in football before Bijan has played a snap. I think Drake London is going to be able to take a next step up. I think Mac Hollins is kind of one of the more underrated players in the game. I think since leaving the Eagles, go Birds, he's bulked up incredibly. He played really well for the Raiders last year with Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller out. I think he is going to be phenomenal alongside Drake London. Scott Miller is a player, but again, it's more so Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan, Mac Hollins. This is a great unit for Desmond Ridder to have, and I think this is an offense that he can work with and be really good in. And I think the O-line is going to help him as well. Chris Lindstrom is one of the most underrated offensive linemen in whole in the league. He's probably a top 3 guard at minimum. I think the rest of the line is pretty good. The defense was really bad last year. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But this year, they went out and they got a lot of pieces. I don't know if they're all going to make good impacts, but I think a lot of them are going to help. You get Calais Campbell to help stop the run. You get David Onyemata, who's also going to help stop the run. A lot of run games kind of ran over the Falcons last year. Getting Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, and Grady Jarrett, that's a really good way to help stop the run. Arnold Ebiketie is going to be here to help with the pass rush. He was a rookie last year. He's going to be able to take the next step this year. Roy Anderson, one of the more underrated linebackers. I actually like him a lot. Bud Dupree, after signing big with the Titans and kind of not being good, comes over here with the Falcons to help with that pass rush alongside Arnold Ebiketie. We'll see how he does, but we'll see if we get Steelers Bud Dupree or Titans Bud Dupree. The secondary, though, is probably where this team thrives. A.J. Terrell 2 seasons ago looked like a top 5 corner. I think he was a first-team All-Pro. Last year, he wasn't as good. He actually was kind of average at best. But we know A.J. Terrell has the talent in him to be one of the best corners in the league. Richie Grant is a guy I actually really like. Jesse Bates, they make the big signing. He gets his bag that he well deserves, a top 5 safety probably. And you get Jeff Okudah. Maybe we'll see if he actually plays. But I like the secondary, Richie Grant, Terrell, Bates. Those 3 are going to be really good for this team. They made a lot of signings to help out this defense so that you don't have to rely on Desmond Ridder to win you games. And we'll see how far Ridder can take this team, but I think he can take them decently far.
Over the past few months, we have gone through now all 32 NFL teams, and with that, it is time to share our full predictions for the year. So how we're going to format this next section is we are going to go through the 7 teams that we think are going to make the playoffs, including the 4 division winners. Going to go over some teams who go far in the playoffs, specifically conference championships and obviously the Super Bowl, along with going through all of our awards. So let's start off with our 7 AFC playoff teams. And I feel like it's easy to go chalk, easy to go with the teams who we think on paper are the 7 best teams in the league right now. But for both conferences, I decided to get creative a little bit. I did not get creative with the number 1 seed, though. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. At 2, this is where the hot takes kind of start. I have the New York Jets winning the AFC East, grabbing the number 2 seed. I know a lot of people think Buffalo is going to win this division, and spoiler alert, I have Buffalo 3rd. That doesn't mean I think Buffalo is not the best team in the division. I think they are, but I think the Jets have an easier schedule, and spoiler alert, the Miami Dolphins do as well, and I think both of these teams are not that far behind the Bills. At 3rd, I had the Bengals, pretty standard. And then in 4th, I had the champion of the AFC South, not the Jaguars, but the Tennessee Titans. I feel like people are sleeping on this team. I think their defense is going to be good. And if Ryan Tannehill can play serviceable football, I think there's a world where they win the division. The 5 seed is the Miami Dolphins. I think they're going to be really good. Maybe they're going to add Jonathan Taylor. Who knows? I think if I were to guess, I do predict he ends up with the Dolphins. My 6th seed is the Buffalo Bills. They still get a wild card spot. And then in 7th place, there were a few teams I thought about, including last year's playoff teams, the Chargers, Ravens, and Jaguars, all of whom I left out. I thought about the Steelers as well, but I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns. I think they just have too much talent on paper to really flounder, especially if Deshaun Watson has the type of season that I think he's going to have. I think Watson's going to be a top 10 quarterback once again, even if he's not a good human being. I don't think that takes away from his talent on the field, and I think the Browns grab that final spot in the AFC.
For my AFC, I feel like I went a bit more chalky. but I sat here for a good hour and a half, 2 hours. I went through every game, and I got records specifically. I won't go into it, but when you get to the 7th seed, I think it's a little interesting. I did keep the division winners pretty chalky. At 1, I have the Chiefs. It's the Chiefs. 2, I have the Bengals. 3, I have the Bills. But if you say the Jets win or the Dolphins win, I wouldn't be that shocked. I just think Josh Allen is going to be Josh Allen. And I think the defense is better from the second half of last year to where they'll be able to win the division, but it's going to be a lot closer than last year. And at 4, I have the Jaguars. I like the Titans a lot, but Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence, I just really like. In the 5 seed, I have the Chargers. I think Justin Herbert with new OC Kellen Moore is going to take a big step forward and kind of prove all the haters that he's a social media quarterback. They're going to prove him wrong. He's going to be fantastic in this new offense. At the 6th seed, I have the Miami Dolphins. I was looking at stats. Tua played phenomenal when he was healthy. The last few games when he was still kind of he didn't play as well, but I think he's going to play really good. And I think that offense is going to take that step forward and make the playoffs. At 7, this is where it gets really weird. I have the same team as the Browns, but I have them sitting at 10-7. I have the Jets at 10-7. I have the Titans at 10-7, and I have the Steelers at 10-7. I have a 4-way record tie for that 7 seed. I guess the website I used picked the Browns. Sure. I think between the Browns, the Jets, the Titans, the Steelers, and the Ravens, and even the Broncos, along with the other teams that I already picked, that is 12 teams that I think have a really good shot into making these playoffs. Picking the AFC playoff teams is really difficult, and especially when you get to those wild card teams, it gets really difficult. You went a lot really weird, and I don't blame you because it's the National Football League. Shit gets weird. The Titans could win the division, and I wouldn't be shocked. I wanted the Steelers to get in. I had them at 11-6, but it felt weird. It felt like I was forcing it. I didn't want to force that, but I think the Steelers could really get in. I think the Ravens could get in. The Broncos could get in. Titans, like you said, I think they could get in. Hell, the Jets could win 14 games, and I still wouldn't be that shocked. There's a lot of teams in this conference that can win games, and it's really difficult to pick who's going to make the playoffs. I stayed chalky because I am not I'm too scared to be different. But for my playoffs, I think I got a bit more weird.
The NFC, I think we can both agree, is significantly worse than the AFC. All of those teams I mentioned that missed out in the AFC would easily make it in the NFC. Look at the Chargers, for example, who I did not have making the playoffs. I think if you put them in the NFC, they're competing for the number 1 seed. So at my number 1 spot, I'm going a little bit hot. I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys. I think their roster is phenomenal. If Dak Prescott can play at a consistent level, this team is going to be really good. At 2, I have San Francisco. As I mentioned earlier, I think Brock Purdy is going to be good enough to where this team continues to produce. 3 and 4 is where things get a little bit weird. I think anybody can win the NFC South and anybody can win the NFC North. So at 3, I'm a believer in Bryce Young. I've got the Carolina Panthers here in 3rd place. I think this team has the making to be very good. And then as the 4 seed, I've got the Lions. I think this is the year where it happens. I think this is the year that Detroit wins the division. On paper, the Eagles are probably the best team in the NFC. They will end up grabbing the 5 seed. And then for my final 2 wildcard spots, again, these teams would not make it in the AFC, but in 6th place, I've got the Packers. I'm high on them. As much as I hate to say it, I think they remind me a lot of the Seattle Seahawks last year in the sense that they traded away their veteran quarterback. Said QB did not play all that well the year prior, and the new quarterback is going to be better than people think. And then in 7th place, we talked about them earlier today. I don't think they're going to be all that good, but I feel like the New Orleans Saints are the type of team who wins 8 or 9 games, who does not deserve to make the playoffs at all, and sneaks in. I think the floor with the Saints is high. I don't think they're going to be awful. I don't think they're going to be good either, but I think they're going to be just good enough to grab that final spot in the wild card.
Again, I feel like I went a bit chalky, but like I said earlier, I think how my playoffs pan out, I think that's when I get a little bold, as I'm definitely not biased whatsoever. I have the Eagles at the 1 seed. They're the Eagles. They're well-deserved. They have probably the best roster, at least on paper, in football. If not, it's top 3. Number 2, I have the Niners. It's the Niners. They're going to win games. At the 3 seed, I have the Detroit Lions. I think they are going to win the division, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. At the 4 seed, the winner of the desert, the NFC South, I can't think of a funny rhyme with South, is the Falcons. I have them going 9-8, just barely above 500, but this could be really any of these 4 teams. I just am a little higher on the Falcons. In the 5 seed, I have the Cowboys. They're a good roster. I think Dak, even though after a down year, is going to play well enough for them to get in. And I like Tony Pollard, so I want to see him in the playoffs. The 6th seed, I have the Seattle Seahawks. I think Geno Smith is going to continue what he did last year. I don't think he's anywhere near a top 10 QB, but I still think this roster is talented enough to at least make the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to win a game. And then the 7th seed, I'm just as high as you are. It's the Green Bay Packers. I think Jordan Love is going to play pretty good. I think people are going to think of him as a top 15 quarterback come this time next year. I had them and the Lions both at 10-7, so I think this division is going to be a lot closer than people think. I had the Vikings pretty much just behind them, 2 games back. The Giants just missed out, 9-8. I think this is going to be a bit of a closer race for more of the wild cards. I think those top few seeds, the Eagles, the Niners, the Cowboys are probably the 3 teams I think are almost definitely going to make it, barring any major injuries. But I think the rest of the division winners as well as the rest of the wild card teams, I think there's a few teams that could sneak in there. The Giants, the Vikings, maybe the Saints, maybe even the Bears if Justin Fields decides to be Lamar Jackson, I guess. But that's how we go. That's how we roll.
So now let's reveal our playoff picks and who we think is going to win the Super Bowl. I did not do it game by game. I just put down the teams who I have making the conference championships. And I went mostly chalky here, as much as I hate to say it. In the AFC, I think we get round 3. Joe Burrow and the Bengals versus Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I want to be aggressive and pick a team like the Jets. I don't think I'm ready to do it. And ultimately, I had the Bengals winning round 3, advancing to the Super Bowl. In the NFC, I've got the top 2 seeds, Dallas and San Francisco. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to pick the Dallas Cowboys to make the Super Bowl. I think San Francisco falls on their face again in the playoffs because the rest of the quarterback room just is not good enough. And then in Super Bowl 58 between the Bengals and the Cowboys, the Dallas collapse comes a couple rounds later than I anticipated. I've got the Bengals winning it all. I think this is their year. I think they've got a phenomenal roster. I think a lot of those young players are going to outperform expectations. I got the Bengals winning their first Super Bowl in franchise history, beating the Dallas Cowboys, and I cannot wait to be proven wrong and watch the Cowboys lose in the wild card round.
I think my craziness starts in the wild card. I have the Chargers beating the Jags. I have the Dolphins dethroning the Bills. I almost had the Browns beat the Bengals, but I got the Bengals over the Browns. Cowboys beat the Falcons because the Falcons aren't all that good. I have the Lions winning a playoff game. That is crazy to say, but I have them going up against Seattle, and then I have the Niners beating the Packers because that is the Packers' kryptonite. In the divisional round, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. I have Justin Herbert going against Joe Burrow in Cincy and taking the throne, going to the AFC Championship against Patrick Mahomes. Interdivision AFC Championship. I didn't have the balls to do it, but I have the Chiefs because they're the Chiefs. I feel like that's the easy pick, and it's the pick that I'm going to go with. In the NFC, I get really chalky. Niners over Lions, Eagles over Cowboys. If we put the Cowboys in the playoffs, I will be ecstatic. I will watch that game. I'll go to that game if I had the money. Going to the Super Bowl, I have a rematch of the Chiefs and the Eagles, the Andy Reid Bowl, the Kelsey Bowl, whatever you want to call it. But I will be biased, and I will pick the Eagles. They have the best roster in football. I think Jalen Hurts is going to take another step up even from last year. I think the run game is going to be great. I think the passing game is going to be great. The defense is going to be top 5. This team, on paper, should be the favorite alongside the Chiefs. And it's basic, but they're the best 2 teams in football, and they should be the ones that make the playoffs, barring anything crazy. This probably is what's going to happen, but like you said, things could get crazy. Joe Burrow could do something. I don't know.
And let's wrap up our season predictions with our awards. On the theme of the Bengals, I had them winning their division. I had them winning the Super Bowl. And Joe Burrow, in my opinion, will win the MVP. As for the rookies of the year, the offensive rookie of the year race is going to be a generational race. You've got Bryce Young leading the Carolina Panthers to the playoffs, and then you've got Bijan Robinson with Atlanta, who I think is going to be a top 5 running back right away. Oftentimes, when there's two really good players like this, the quarterback wins the award, and I think Bryce Young's going to have a better rookie year than some of the recent Rookie of the Year winners. But I also think Bijan Robinson is going to be too good. I've got Bijan winning that. And then the Defensive Rookie of the Year, I could have gone chalky with a guy like Will Anderson, who's I know is going to be really good right off the bat. Devin Witherspoon I thought about. But I decided to get a little bit creative. There has been so much buzz out of camp for Brian Branch. I think the situation that he's in as a versatile piece, working with Aaron Glenn, who already is familiar with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who also happens to be on the roster, I think Brian Branch is going to be used in a variety of different ways, and I think he's going to be good wherever he plays, proving himself as a legit top 10 to 15 player in this year's draft class, where he really should have gone all along. I decided to get creative with my Offensive Player of the Year pick as well. I've made it clear I'm high on the Jets. I think the Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson connection is going to be really good. And when Garrett Wilson came out of college, I said that I think he could be the next version of Justin Jefferson, as a guy who's maybe not the biggest, maybe not the fastest, but he knows how to play receiver, and he's darn good at it. I'm going to stand my ground on that. I've got Garrett Wilson winning the Offensive Player of the Year. And then as for DPOY, I decided to be less creative and go with Micah Parsons. As for the Comeback Player of the Year, it's got to be Damar Hamlin. I don't see any other route you can go with. And then Coach of the Year, after leading the Panthers to a surprise 3 seed, I got Frank Reich taking home the award.
I wrote down a couple names for all of these awards. I wrote down some obvious names, some dark horse names. But for the winners, my MVP, my big name, the guy that takes his team from choking in the playoffs to the AFC Championship, Justin Herbert in his new offense with Kellen Moore is going to win an MVP. He has the raw talent to be as good as a guy like prime Aaron Rodgers, and I think he's going to do that. For Offensive Player of the Year, it might be a bit chalky. I don't know. I don't know with Tyreek Hill. I think with a healthy Tua, he's going to be really good. I think there's been noise that because he was on pace for 2,000 yards throughout like 5 games, he could do it this year. That's not going to happen. It's absolutely not. But I think he's going to be really good. Defensive Player of the Year, a bit chalky. Myles Garrett. I think I'm going to pick him until he wins it, and then I can go elsewhere. My bias wanted to pick Hassan Reddick, and I also thought about Chris Jones, but I don't want to pick him because of his holdout. Offensive Rookie, I'm going to go chalky, and I am going to go with Bijan. I do want to mention Quentin Johnson, the wide receiver from the Chargers, playing with who I think is going to be MVP, Justin Herbert. I think he's going to be really good. If Keenan Allen and Mike Williams get hurt like they always do, he could be the guy to step up and be phenomenal. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I feel like I had to pick an Eagle somewhere, and I think Jalen Carter is where I am going to pick it. I think he is really good. He's shown a lot of promise in camp, and I think he might steal snaps away from Fletcher Cox and just be our best defense tackle probably right away. I do want to mention Jack Campbell. I think Jack Campbell is really good. And if they start him right away, he could be something, and he could be really good. For Coach of the Year, you could go basic, go with the best team with Nick Sirianni, but I'm going to go with the man who brought the Lions back to the playoffs, Dan Campbell. And Comeback Player of the Year, it's probably going to be Damar Hamlin, but I do want to throw Tua's name out there because he's going to play a lot more than Damar Hamlin. But it's Damar Hamlin. He's going to win it. He should win it. But I did want to mention Tua's name in this.
So those are our award predictions and our other predictions for the NFL season. I know everybody's going to completely agree with these and not be mad at all.